to go? Everybody's joined up?
Yep.
You joined?
Ready?
Are you escalating on the police pay thing? On the bonus? If we don't press
Start this. Harrison or Harrison?
H-A-R-R-I-S-O-N.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I hereby call this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. As always, we'd like to take a moment and just thank all of our city staff for what you do and all those who have come down to the meeting. We're joined here today by our city manager's office, led by our city manager, Mr. Lee Garrity, the city attorney's office, led by our city attorney, Angela Carmen, and our public safety attorney, Lori Sykes. We have our chief of police, Barry Roundtree, with us. We have our director of emergency management, Mr. Mel Sadler, and we're joined by many police department personnel and fire department personnel who are led by our fire chief, Chief Mayo. It's always difficult to call everyone's name, so thank you all for being here today. Members of the council, as you always know, items on the consent agenda are taken first. They will be unanimously approved unless one of you wishes to be pulled for consideration. Are there any items that should be pulled for consideration?
C1.
Item C1, we'll pull that one. If there is nothing further, I'd entertain a motion electronically. All right, looks like we have a motion and a second, and if you would just bear with us, we're working through this electronic piece. It's been motioned by Councilmember McIntosh, seconded by Councilmember Burke. All in favor, please vote yes.
It will not appear on the screen if that's what you're looking for.
It will soon. We just got to get some more equipment in here.
All right, so it appears that the consent agenda is coming up. It will be approved with the exception of item C1, and let's just go ahead and move to item C1, please.
Item C1, resolution approving the Poplar Street Traffic Calming Plan for funding and construction located in the Northwest Ward.
I'd like to recognize Councilmember McIntosh.
Can I get just a quick report on this?
Certainly.
Mr. Turner is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, as you recall, the City Council adopted a traffic calming policy that specifies under what conditions the City Council will allow the installation of traffic calming devices or treatments on public streets. It involves a public involvement process, or it includes a public involvement process where the neighborhood comes together, evaluates certain options for treating the concern. The city staff then confirms that there is a true problem, and after I think it requires 60 to 70% support from the community, and a recommendation is made to the City Council for your consideration for approval as the reading indicated of the project and the funding. In this case, the neighborhood on North Poplar Street has proposed to council, and staff concurs, that a speed hump or speed cushion type treatment be allowed. There are certain restrictions for the number of those that your policy allows. They are well within that, well, there's a limit of 6, and they're well under that 6 with their request for 1 device.
Councilman McIntosh.
Just a quick comment. Holly Avenue neighborhood is a very engaged, very involved group of people. When Rod Ring and his staff do traffic calming studies, they describe the perfect solution as what Poplar Street already is. It's a narrow street, parking on both sides. You would think that people would drive slowly on it. People haul on that one section between 1st and 2nd Street. There have been a number of accidents there where people have run into parked cars. I mean, it's a very high number of them. In every traffic calming case, especially the ones with elevation devices that we recommend, I think we're always very careful about recommending those. In this case, it makes a lot of sense. It makes perfect sense. It's in the middle of the block. It's just a 1-block stretch. I don't feel like it's a hindrance to fire and safety. So I'm very much in favor of this. But I just kind of wanted to point out that it is a very unique situation, and kind of boggles my mind that people would speed down that one stretch of roadway. So, motion for approval.
I didn't.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay to make the motion, but if you do it electronically, please. motion and a second. All in favor, please vote yes. The beauty of technology, I think that appears to be unanimous. Thank you. Item G1, please.
Beautiful thing.
Item G1, North Carolina State Firefighters Association scholarship presentation to Captain Chris Belcher.
I guess kicking off the presentation will be our fire chief, Chief Mayo. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, other members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, can I go off script for just about 30 seconds?
You've got the
I'd
floor.
like to make an introduction. Battalion Chief Sharice Moore is here. You've seen her before, but
Yes, sir.
this evening we know. Just keep standing there, Chief. She is, tonight she's acting as Division Chief, but more importantly than that, she has been accepted into the inaugural class of the International Association of Fire Chiefs Diversity Executive Leadership Program. They only accept 15, no more than 15 fellows into that program. This is the first class, I think I said that. And I know you and I have spoken before. You and I both have an interest in being out front and leading. Chief Moore was the first African-American female captain and battalion chief in the Winston-Salem Fire Department, and now she will be hanging the Winston-Salem Fire Department's name on this inaugural class of what is called IDELP. So I thought I would bring that to your attention and recognize her for that achievement.
All right, please stand. Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I was saying he was standing the man there that I really couldn't get to see her, even though I've known her from a child, but I like to just make sure I see her in this wonderful position.
Thank you for your service. Chief Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris Davis, who is the Piedmont Director for the North Carolina State Firefighters Association, for the balance of the presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you for allowing the time to interrupt your meeting so that we can present Mr. Belcher with this. Chris, it's an honor. I've known you for several years, or many years, and enduring an education while working is a great undertaking. On behalf of the North Carolina State Firefighter Association and your willingness to pursue a master's degree, we happily and proudly present you with this scholarship and $10,000 to help you along the way.
Nice.
All right. Captain Belcher, would you have any words before you take your seat? I did put you on the spot. I'm good at it. Okay. Thank you for your service as well. Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I believe at the employees' excellent luncheon, Mr. Belcher's name did come up. Sometimes things don't happen like maybe what you want, but you always know that God has something always special still for you. So I'm sure that all of us are just as proud of you for what you're doing and what you will continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Mayo.
Mr. Chairman, you'll remember that Captain Belcher was here a few meetings back. He was recognized as Forsyth County Fire Rescue Association's Instructor of the Year. He also, a white paper came out today that went out statewide to all fire and medical response agencies that also has his name on it as one of the co-authors, and this will be for a protocol for response to active assailant events. So we have a lot to be proud of from the folks from the Winston-Salem Fire Department.
Here, here. And Chief Mayo, before you take your seat, I completely admit, I always say this, I am biased when it comes to our public safety personnel. I think we have, since you're at the podium, we have the best fire department in America. And I think,
that.
you know, when we highlight the good things that are going on, it sheds a light on the great things that the city is doing and your leadership and how it trickles down throughout the department. So thank you for what you do, and we appreciate every one of you who were recognized today.
Thank you for your and the committee and the manager's office for support from all of you. We do have a lot of dedicated and talented folks.
We do. Thank you, Chief.
sir.
Thank you.
Item G2, please.
Item G2, proposed Unified Development Ordinances text amendments adding needle and hypodermic syringe exchange program as a use. This item was continued for the March 20th, April 10th, and May 8th Public Safety Committee.
Members of the committee, we have examined this concept front and back. We do have Mr. Colin Miller, who has spoken before, but he has signed up to speak this evening. I want to take a pause and recognize Councilmember Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Over the last 30 days or 60 days, 90 days when we started this process, there's been a lot of conversation and there's been a lot of movement nationally. Anybody who reads the paper understands the problem that this particular program is a partial solution for. You know, you have a national concern right now. We read that the federal government's looking at sending $30 million or so down to the state to help address this. The state government is looking at trying to find solutions to this ordinance that they passed last year to provide funding and support for it. There are a lot of moving parts right now, and what we've also realized, of course, is that all health issues fall more or less under the county jurisdiction, and they need to be a partner in these discussions. I think I've had a lot of good input. We know there's a lot of conversation still going on right now. I am not prepared to vote today on this, and I would recommend we hold it in committee.
Well, this particular needle exchange is in the South Ward.
This one particular needle exchange is in the South Ward.
I know there's a bigger issue,
but it's never been about one needle exchange in one location. I've never approached it as that way. It is a national health issue. This particular solution is part of a mosaic that has to be dealt with. We can deal with it at a quality level. Council member McIntosh brought up last time, I believe, concerns about how we regulate or quality control these kinds of operations. Perhaps staff has done some work on that since we last talked, and I'd be happy to hear their reports on it to sort of add to our database about how to best handle these things. We have, the ability right now, the city has the ability to provide zoning, which is a method of controlling location, but does not control operational quality controls. And so I think the question of that needs to be woven into these discussions as well. And right now, I think we're still in the process of dealing with that.
Councilmember McIntosh.
One of the big hesitancies I have about making this a zoning question is the problem is not about land use. The problem is about opioid abuse. And to solve it, zoning laws are not going to solve it. Arrests are not going to solve it. It's a public health issue. And our conversation back and forth has been more about how do we get the public health sector to step in and partner and help guide this so it's not a situation of where you're going to stick it, what neighborhood it's going to be in. It's more of an oversight. What happens when they work well? What happens when they don't work well? So I think we're making forward motion in that. I sort of apologize to the folks that would like to see it settled one way or the other, but I do think that it's best for us to take our time and do this right. The problem's not going away. The concerns of the neighborhoods are not going away. So I think walking this tightrope is the right way to approach it, to make sure that we get as much assistance as we can to the addicted, but also to provide the right level of protection to our neighborhood. So I'm in favor of holding it and continue to mold it. There are other voices around this table now, around this conversation that I think are good voices. So I feel good about where we're going. I just don't think we're there yet.
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
No, I was just going to say I commend Councilman Larson for taking the lead, doing a lot of research, and also in agreement to hold it in the committee.
Thank you.
Well, on one end, we're discussing the locations of needle exchanges. On the other end, in the last committee meeting, which was finance, and we've discussed it in the past, this council is considering funding drug court, which is a way that we can also address the opioid epidemic. So it takes all of us moving in the right direction. Members of the committee, I just want to address Mr. Miller. Do you still have a need to speak after hearing what you've heard today? We'll allow it. Everybody gets that opportunity. So everybody gets 3 minutes to speak. If you would just address us at the podium, give your name and address for the record. You have the floor.
All right. My name is I guess I just wanted to thank you guys for looking at this issue and taking some time with it and not rushing to judgment. I did really want to say that just kind of give an update on, there were some people here from the neighborhood last time. We've been reporting to and attending the neighborhood association meetings. I've met with a number of people in the neighborhood. I've found that just with the people in the neighborhood, and I think this will probably prove true for possibly council members as well, that once you show people the data and the research that's been done and they have an understanding of how this sort of things works, they kind of come around on it. We've had a number of people that I spoke to at the West Salem Neighborhood Association have really come full circle on this. People that were opposed 5-6 months ago, they've seen us in operation for 6 months now. They've heard the numbers that we have. They see the benefits of it, and there haven't been any negative consequences. So I think that as we continue to proceed and there continue to not be problems, the need for any sort of reining in, I think, is sort of negated by that, or sort of checks and balances. I believe the checks and balances on a program like ours is already provided for. Not only in the fact that we provide our security plans to the police department, sheriff's department, but also the fact that, I'm regularly in meetings with people from the police department, from community paramedics, and other folks that are working on rapid response team to go out when people overdose, working with treatment centers, working with mental health professionals, so I feel like we're really a part of this, and I just want to implore everybody to kind of, think about us as, implore everybody, I guess, to reach out to us in the coming month. We're going to be having a public forum at Green Street United Methodist on Wednesday the 28th. I believe Pastor Kelly Carpenter sent an email about it to you guys earlier today. So we're going to invite the community and as many other people, as far as we're going to invite the police and some other folks around town to try to get a lot of people at the table and sort of see what movement's going on in the community and try to educate people and field any questions and maybe get some movement going on how we can best tackle this epidemic together. So,
well, Mr. Miller, your time is up. I want to say thank you for your comments, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you. Item G3, please.
Item G3, information concerning emergency operations training proposal for senior officials.
Giving us information on the emergency operations training proposal is our emergency management director, who we've introduced already, Mr. Mills Sadler. Mr. Sadler, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Good evening.
This is not an item that requires any action at this point. We are really just passing on some information and making a proposal. We recognize that if we start now, we may be able to get some time on your calendars by fall, because you're pretty busy. But we want to refresh for some and introduce some new information for others in terms of emergency operations. We'll be asking you, if we will, if we can get 3 sessions. We trained last in April of 2014, and that was a 2-hour session, and it worked out pretty well, but we need some extra time so that we can have an exercise too. We've had several inquiries from council members and others in respect to having an exercise in addition to training, and we think we can make it all in one package. So again, this is just information. We want to ask for your consideration on the calendars for the fall, sometime between September and November, in that general time frame, in order to accomplish what we think would be a good session and getting everybody on the same sheet of music for emergency operations. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I think it's a good concept, Mr. Sadler. Are there any questions for him? Councilman Lawson.
As a new kid on the block, I'd appreciate doing that. It's, my nightmare is that we have an emergency, and we're not prepared for that. So.
Well, we'll be prepared.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Sadler, I think you'll attest to this. The number one question you've ever been asked when you stand before this committee is, are we prepared? And I've got to take a moment of personal privilege and throw it back out. Mr. Sadler, are we prepared?
We feel that we're prepared. We're ready for almost anything that can be thrown at us, we believe. We've had some training since the time. We went to Emmitsburg and did some other things on a smaller scale, but we haven't engaged the entire council with the mayor in 3 years. And we purposely planned it after the past election, because we knew that there would be at least one new council member. So things are working out, and we're getting our timing together.
All right. So we thank you for taking the time to address us, and we're looking forward to working with you. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Item G4, please.
Item G4, review of proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 public safety budgets.
All right. And Ms. Tony, as you come forward, I must say publicly that I am very impressed with the way that you've handled this year's budget. Dealing with 8 different council members and the mayor has been tough. Your first go around, so I think you've done an excellent job. It's not finished yet, so we'll start by allowing you to give the proposal. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'll present to you the proposed budget for FY 2017-2018 as it relates specifically to the public safety area, which we call Safe and Secure Community as a strategic focus area. For public safety, we have some pay adjustments. The pay adjustments are a 2% adjustment for sworn police and certified fire. That will be effective on January 1st of 2018. Police officer retention pay, which I'll discuss a little bit more in a minute. There is a merit pay increase that is an average of 2% based on performance, and a full year of 401A contributions. It's a 2% contribution towards retirement plan. And that's for all city employees except for sworn. So when we look specifically at the police department, we are proposing $149,000 for district facility operating expenses for this coming budget year. We have budgeted dollars to accommodate body camera maintenance and storage. And then we have vehicle and equipment replacement. We budgeted $239,910 in lease payments. So that includes 35 police pursuit vehicles, 4 non-pursuit vehicles, 30 replacement radars, 54 laptops and computers. These are replacements, and a few other public safety IS equipment. For the police retention efforts, we took recommendations from the 1/3 study, and the study showed various results of 459 people were within the range, 26 were below the market, and 16 above the market. The recommendation is to have a new starting minimum of $37,590. We also are adding a 2% retention pay adjustment for the following positions. It includes assistant police chiefs, police captains, police lieutenants, police staff sergeants, police corporals and detectives, and police officers. There will be an additional 2% compression increase for officers who are already within the market range. And so on the right of your screen, you can see the new police market range. Trainees start at $35,800, and the starting pay after training is $37,590. For specifically the fire department, on the fire prevention side, there's an addition of 1 fire inspection position. This is a second fire inspector position of a 3-year plan. And so for FY 18-19, the 1 more inspector will complete that plan. For fire inspections, the fire inspection workload estimates is in the chart below. The decline, the drop off from 2016 to 17 is partly due to change in how the state does their inspection schedule, and that aligns more with the state schedule. For operating supplies and services, we are recommending $50,000 is in the proposed budget for protective hoods. And the protective hoods is something that limits exposure to carcinogenic particles and matters, and protects fire from those particles, and ultimately preventing cancer. And the vehicle and equipment replacement is $99,680 in lease payments, and that's for 2 pumpers. On emergency management, we notably added, are you prepared? So that was a good question. In our continuation budget, there is a web EOC update, which is city implementation in August of 2016. Staff provided training for agencies that participate in activation activities of the Emergency Operations Center. It provides for event tracking and post-event reporting, resource management, and information collection and sharing. We talked a little bit about the SOAR agencies. This is Successful Outcomes After Release Program. $229,950 in total program funding. The Job Reentry Administration reassigned to the city's construction training program costs $134,950. Grants to community agencies was $85,000, and we have a $10,000 in SOAR contingency funding. The $85,000 is broken down by the agencies listed below, and the last three agencies listed are seed-funded agencies where we provide a little support to get them started and some capacity building to support those agencies.
Ms. Tony, and I think there was general consensus in finance, and I think that is fine to say that here unless there's objection, that we look at the addition of honorable youth to these seed agencies.
That's exactly.
And there's no way you would have it in the proposal, but I just wanted to make sure we articulated that for the records.
Yes, we brought honorable youth back on the plate as a seed-funded agency for FY18 as well.
Thank you.
For the capital improvement plan for safe and secure community, we are proposing $996,840 for fire apparatus replacement. This is for financing over 10 years. $340,000 for fire station facility renovations, $150,000 for fire station land acquisition. The CIP planned appropriations for a fiscal year 2019 through 2023 is $8 million for fire apparatus replacement and $450,000 for facility maintenance and upgrades based on the facility condition assessments. And you can kind of see that laid out in the chart below over a 5-year period.
Mr. Tony, excuse me for interrupting. Councilmember McIntosh.
Is that a typical finance term that we use, 10 years? Is that on average what we do?
Finance.
For leasing equipment?
Yeah.
Most of our leasing equipment is 5 years.
5-year term.
It's a 5-year, we borrow a 5-year note. Because the fire pumpers and ladders are such a long-term equipment, we do 10 years for those.
And their usable lifespan is what?
12 to 15.
Yeah.
And frontline service, then we put them in reserve service for a few years, depending on how well, sort of shape they're in, how well they're going.
So by the time we're done paying with them, they still have value?
Yes.
Not, they're, understanding they're not frontline.
Yes, they have value to us in a functional capacity.
Right. Great. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Tony? Ms. Tony?
Okay. This screen shows the proposed capital outlay for safe and secure community. Kind of mentioned pretty much the police pursuit vehicles, and you can see down the list some of the capital outlay proposed for 2017-2018. A total purchase cost of $2.4 million, and the FY18 lease payment for this current budget is $393,590. This budgeted. And it was brought up just a little while ago about the opiate epidemic and the request. We have a new request in that Finance Committee is considering, and it's to revive the Adult Drug Treatment Court, and it's to address heroin epidemic and all of the issues surrounding that issue. The request is for $35,000 from the city, and the county is also potentially going to fund the other half. And so we are potentially will fund that out of the general fund contingency. Do you want to say anything else about that, Councilman Taylor?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm glad everyone supports it.
We're going good.
Okay. That It's all for safe and secure community budget.
Thank you, Ms. Tony.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Larson.
Can we go back to, I think it's your second image, police retention efforts, where we talk about minimum, mid, and maximum grade salary
Page 4.
range?
Yes.
Can we not round these figures up? I mean, really? I mean, do we have to have 28 cents, on the pay raises here? I mean, it seems to me, just from an accounting purpose, we could simplify everybody, and we could say that the minimum starting salary is, in fact, $37,600, for example. Is that $10 going to kill us?
No, we can do that.
I think we ought to just kind of simplify the salary schedule here and bump things up of nickels and dimes and get away from these 28.
Councilman Larson, I think the challenge may be the hourly rate that rolls that up to. In other words, there's an hourly rate that we have to set in the pay system. So that's why when you calculate that hourly rate, which is rounded,
You get 72 cents for the salary. Yeah, really.
Actually, believe it or not, we carry our hourly rate out 4 decimal points. So,
Mrs. Caruth, this is going to be important. Can we have you come up to the table or to the podium, please? I was looking at you for a nod or for a shake, so I'm glad you decided to.
Before she gets going, we all got to give her some encouragement because our HR director is going to have surgery tomorrow on her broken arm.
Oh no! Who did you hit?
I'm sorry. You know who I hit. He looks a lot worse than I do. We actually, even if we were to do that, we still round out, we carry our hourly rate out 4 digits. So so an hourly rate would be like, $22.3567%.
Okay.
So are we paying somebody like $11.27 as a rate in this city? Is that the kind of, if I were to look at hourly rates, are we down to that sort of?
if you were to look at hourly rates, we would be paying someone a rate that, like I said, is $11.3756 by the time it all gets carried out through the system.
I'm not talking about benefits. I'm talking about straight salary.
That's what I'm talking about, too.
Wow, that just seems like a whole lot of work.
Yeah. It's the way our system calculates it. So even if we do round them, you still have these weird hourly rates.
Mr. Garrity?
I think it's,
I think somebody's going to have to explain this more to me, not offline maybe.
offline. We'll give you some information. It's part of the
Because it seems like you set a rate, and it ought to be a number that's fairly rational, and then that's the rate that we pay against, and it shouldn't have, at the end of the month, weird little numbers or whatever, on the end of the year, weird little numbers. I mean, I can't believe our rate system's set up to pay, 23 cents or something, $10, $12.23. Why don't we pay $10.25 and make it easy on everybody?
So I think your question is on the floor. Mr. Garrity, let's hear from you, and then we'll come back.
We'd have to look at rounding, but we'd have to always default to round up.
Yeah.
Because the employees, but you'd have to round up even if it's at 0.1, because employees are used to taking that out 4 digits to get their full amount.
And we are spending a lot of time worrying about our employees.
Mr. Larson?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Garrity?
We could deal with it offline.
Back to you, Mr. Larson.
We'll deal with it offline.
I do understand.
Mr. McIntosh?
My guess is that's a very expensive rounding. My guess is that the compression that occurs above it ends up being real money, not just $10 a year, those kind of things. And both from a pay standpoint, but also from a workload standpoint from staff. I mean, I think it's probably a significant effort to do that. And to what end? I think somebody, they're either happy with $37,590 divided by 12 or however many divisions per week, or they're not.
I'm not ready to accept that. Everybody wants more pay and whatever. I'm looking for a simplified pay system that seems rational. That's what I'm looking for.
Mr. Garrity, you've heard from the committee?
Yes.
And I imagine you work with Ms. Caruth and Ms. Tony and see if we can't come to a resolution.
Okay.
Are you satisfied, Mr. Larson?
Absolutely.
Mr. McIntosh? Mm-hmm. All right. So it appears that Ms. Tony has completed her presentation. Those were all the items on the general agenda. Is there any additional business that should be brought forward for consideration before we move to close? Seeing nothing further, we'll consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.